Hey everyone, Ben here from Stellar Work. I'm happy you've tuned in into today's episode because I really wanted to show you not only consultants and trainer opinions, but also hands-on practitioners. That's why I'm especially happy to not only have one, but two guests here with me. Sophie Seiwald Hojer has been knee-deep into the tech world of Mercedes-Benz for over 17 years and transformed teams and organizations from project to product-led. Our other guest is Matthias Patzak. He's well known as one of the industry's first mover building big CI pipelines. He became CTO of Autoscout24 and is currently working as an enterprise strategist at Amazon Web Services. But enough of the intro. Let's jump into today's episode. How's it going with your book?
Yeah, how is it going? So actual word count is 75,000 words. So we planned with 62 and it's getting longer and longer. I try to keep it short, but actually we see from topics that we have to cover, we need to add more content. But actually from a content perspective, I'm curious what Sophie is saying. But from a content perspective, it's good. From a quality perspective, it's a way to go.
Exactly. So I think we noted down everything we wanted to say, but we want to be true to ourselves,
Yeah.
and we want to launch at least one of our chapters as soon as possible to get feedback from our community, and also then start working from there. Because I do believe the principles that we are preaching in our book should be the ones that we also apply when developing the book. So a way to go, but we're getting better and better, and per iteration, we are actually improving, I would say.
Yeah, and then we might invite the copy editor. Then we might ask the copy editor to do editoring, and then the person is reducing it to 40,000 words. And then we have written far too much, because this is what I hear from everyone. Don't write too much, because the editor is going to reduce this. We will see.
Yeah. So you sent me a copy of like the 150 pages that I could go through. And first of all, I have to say congratulations on the name, All Hands on Tech. That's a very good name. That's just a very, very good name.
Thank you.
And also what I've seen is that you were writing this very hands-on how to build different types of organizations. And you started with how to build teams, and then you move on to larger software organizations. Could you give us like a brief introduction to what your perspective on transformations are?
Ladies first.
Sure. So, I mean, first of all, I think what we are intending with the book is to be definitely pragmatic and to help you find yourself in your daily business and say, okay, this is exactly what I'm encountering. And there seem to be a lot of people who have the same problem. And this is somehow the solution. This is how I can get to the next step. And that's exactly, at least my personal take on transformation, that we tend to have a lot of methods and frameworks and consultants who try to give you the silver bullet for everything. But the idea about transformation is to go really deep into understanding your own organization and really also do an in-depth transformation. And our experience has been so far that we do a lot of rearranging and reorganization and give everything a fancy name, but to dive really into the world of tech transformation and really embrace what needs to be done in order to become more agile, to become more closer to code and whatever, it requires much more than just the one or the other framework. And this is at least my personal motivation, everything that I have learned over the last almost 20 years, to bring this into a written word and share it with the community.
Yeah, I wonder if this book is really about the transformation. So at least transformation is not part of the title. So you said it's all hands on tech, and credits to Sophie. And then it's how to create organizations that innovate at scale, something like this. And I just wanted to search in the actual draft of the book about the word transformation. We are not using the word transformation a lot because this was not, I'm not sure. It's about building. It's about building and creating organizations who deliver business value, but it's not so much about this transformation. We have a chapter on change, but it's more really on delivering business value with happy people. And this was the purpose. And in my, so to say, career, so I started to work with Agile 2003, with building CI/CD servers for Scrum organization 2004. It was never about transformation. So yes, it was a lot of change involved, but it was always about working smarter, working a bit less, delivering more business value, and having less stress on the weekend. So I remember very well how we delivered software in 2006, 2008, working on the weekends. Release was planned for 5 days. Actually, it lasted 7 or 8 days, depending on the quality. And it was horrible. And I was just lazy. And I was tired with this stuff. And there, even in 2008, there were a lot of receipts out there how to work smarter. And this is what we want to do. And the both of us, we have experience in setting up successful organizations with happy and motivated people. And we want to share, because nothing what I did in my career or what we have written in the book was really invented by me or us. We're just collecting wisdom from other people. So they share with us and we share back with the community. And this is the intent of the book.
So what would your approach be if someone, let's say, buys the book, reads it, and wants to apply the principles that are and the techniques from within? What would your approach be? Because most organizations or part of the organizations already exist. It's very rare that you stumble upon a founder that could build up from the blank page, right? So that's also why I was using the word transformation, because although you're not talking about transformation, the state of your audience most of the time will be some kind of, we're working this way and now we want to be better. We want to deliver more frequently. We want to have better quality. We want to be more on the tech side of things. And how would you approach such a situation where you introduce what you've learned, what you uncovered, what you've written down in the book, and without mentioning like roles, titles, processes, frameworks, like you, Sophie, said, bring that to life in an organization? What would your approach or tip to such a person be?
So actually, I avoid the word transformation because it has, at least in the areas where I work, a negative touch. And it's always, don't panic, we have to transform. Don't panic, we have to transform. And there is the pink elephant in the room about transformation, and it's, everything has to change and I have to change. And it always comes down with how you're currently working is not good enough. So you have to change. And then, people panic. And this is not how I want to drive change in an organization, but it's about improving certain aspects. And the first one is really improve the business value that your organization is delivering. The second is speed. So cycle time, lead time, time to market from idea to impact, not time to production. It's time to impact. It's throughput. It's quality, certain aspects, functional and non-functional. It's cost in many organizations. And very important is motivation and engagement of the staff and the colleagues. And these are the attack vectors. If you want to drive change in an organization, and this is, as I said, why I drove a lot of change in my organization, because I wanted to work less, stress-free, and deliver more business value. And then you have just to decide what is your current pain in your organization. Is it cycle time or quality? And depending on what your actual pain is, you can drive change. You can start with our book. Currently it's 90 chapters, and start with chapter 1 and then work you through year by year until you managed all 19 chapters. But work smart and drive the change in organization where you need it. Quality, business value, whatever it is. And then you have certain ingredients. And this is why the book is covered as a guide. How to deliver twice as fast as a book. And if speed is your issue, this chapter is your guide. And you need to be just situational aware. You need to have situational awareness. So it starts with what is requested from you. So in one of my companies in my career, I was really requested in, as you said, not transforming. So we didn't use, I have a startup and digital native background. We didn't use the transformation, but you need to modernize. You need to create then new tech stack to drive innovation. This was really large scale transformation, as you would call it. Change everything in a short period of time. While in another company, in another situation in my career, I was not allowed to drive change because it was a startup. We have just matured ourselves from a startup to a corporate perspective. We introduced banking processes for a startup. It was a totally mess. But then in a guerrilla fashion, in a guerrilla way of working, I introduced agile ways of working. CI/CD, unit testing, sprints. I didn't tell anyone, but the organization realized and noticed that IT got better, releases got more reliable and faster. And then after 9 months, I told everyone what I was doing. And then we introduced Agile. So it totally depends on what is the context, what is the situation in the organization. And depending on this, you need to drive change in a certain way. But the key aspect is you need to want change and improve and to learn and to adapt. And then it just depends how fast you can go and how much change you want to apply in your organization.
So what you're just saying, I've seen that on multiple occasions with different teams and companies where they wanted to introduce like a framework or a certain approach, and they jump in and they explain the methodology they're using and introduce like the full thing, right? And what you're describing is you were like submarine style, sneaky introducing the techniques behind it that actually provide value. And once you proved your point by delivering value, you were like talking about it as a way of working and not so much about like introducing CI/CD and all of that stuff. So that's really interesting because it's different from what I've seen, let's say, the typical Scrum Master would do coming out of a 2-day certification course and being asked to introduce Scrum to the new team, right? So do you think that whole bubble of methodologies and frameworks will crash and go down in flames?
Maybe I can answer this. So I don't think it will crash down in flames, but I think the temptation to focus on the methodology and not rethink the concepts that you actually would need in order to get faster, to get to the point of delivering more value, it will not solve that problem. If you have had, for example, a misaligned organization without a proper purpose or proper strategy, it doesn't matter which framework you're going to introduce, you'll continue to have the same problem, right? If you continue to outsource your entire development work to a third party, for example, and you don't even have a clue where software code is hosted or how it operates or who has it, you will still have the same problem if you use safe or less or whatever, right? So first of all, as I said, starting with a smaller team and trying to learn this in detail topics which you need in order to achieve more business value. I think you will not do that. You really need to get your hands on that topic. At what point of time, if you have a team, let's say 10 teams and more teams that you need to align with each other, you will need to find a common ground. You need to find a common language. You will need to find your meetings where you discuss things. So not talk about scaling. But now we talk about the first step, right? And there I'm really don't focus too much on the methodology, but focus on what you want to try to achieve. And it's really, I think it's a task in itself to relearn things that you previously basically outsourced or didn't even think about. Again, I think Matthias, you and I, we had a really nice example with the topic of software code. Usually in a company, you outsource your development work to an external vendor, right? And however, there's maybe a little bit, not everyone is like that, but you can encounter, usually the customer doesn't really care in which language is it written and where is the software code hosted and how our developers are checking in their code. No one actually cares because it's used to be a non-value adding task, right? But coming to what's the non-value adding task, value adding task a little bit later, maybe, we really think that you will not get around that learning journey that you have to have. But if you start right away, say, okay, now let's introduce framework ABC, your entire discussion is about how to organize it, who will be who will have a job in this area and in this area. And it's not about how to actually make your software development faster, how to create more clarity in your teams on what needs to be delivered, right? It's not about your technology change that you need to conduct. It's all about organization, power, rules. And I would say you can do this, you need to do this at a later stage in a certain extent, but I'd say you need to start the other way around. That's more like our plaidoyer, if you can say, I don't know the English word. And this is the area where we are coming from.
Yeah,
Oh,
I believe
100%.
methodologies are important.
I've seen. Sorry, what was that?
I believe methodologies are important.
Yeah.
And you need to master certain methodologies that you then are able to understand why they work the way they work. And then you can come up with your own blend, what is a proper methodology in your organization. But it's like Karate Kid, the old movie. I am not aware of the new one. There are an old one and a new one. But in the old one, Karate Kid, so this young student who wants to learn karate is trained by a very experienced teacher. Actually, it's a person from his school, and he is asked to paint the fence or polish the car.
That's Mr.
Miyagi,
right?
Yeah, and for the kids, it's totally stupid. It's totally stupid. Why to polish the car in a certain way or paint the fence? But actually, these are certain moves in karate, and it was just creating the muscles in the student's body. And this is why having proper CI/CD by the book, having Scrum or Kanban mastered by the book in place in an organization is really important, because you build up the muscles in your processes, in the mindset, in the individual contributors on how to apply those implementation of the Agile Manifesto. And then if you have mastered those, you can blend them in your own methodology. And this is what we try in our book, not to come up with a new methodology. This is how you do it. It's guided by questions: how to become twice as fast, how to align loosely coupled teams, how to structure teams. And we give guidance, and we try to give guidance for certain situations.
Absolutely, but wouldn't you say that if you introduce it, let's say you're introducing Scrum by the book to a certain part of the organization, and for sure you will go through a period of change when you introduce Scrum, and if that doesn't link, or if it's not rooted into the current state of the organization, people would get frustrated with the framework, because they ask themselves, why do we need this? Why do we need that? What is the Scrum Master for? We didn't need that in the past. Why do we need it now?
They would be anyhow frustrated.
Wouldn't you say that you run into the danger of frustrating your organization through the change?
Yes. Change is not easy. And you will be either frustrated if you would not follow Scrum by the book, the people would just do cherry picking, and it would feel good for a year, but they would not improve on business value, cycle time, throughput, quality, and finally not on motivation. Or they might have happy people because everyone is just doing what they want to do, because they are not doing Scrum by the book. If you're doing Scrum by the book, it's uncomfortable. But if you do it properly, you will see we're delivering more business value, cycle time improving, throughput improving, quality is improving. And this is why we are working in organizations, to deliver business value for customers. It's not, I would not work. I would just go out to the mountains or fly a glider if I want to be just a happy person. Actually, I have joy in my work, but it's about making customers happy.
So I'd like to come back to another topic that we touched about creating value. Because Sophie, you said we could go back to this, and I definitely want to. Because I see that most of those frameworks we talked about are really good at creating processes and really good at creating sort of a safe system, predictable system in which you know how your week goes, right? You have like the daily stand-up here, you have a review there, you have a retrospective over here, you have certain metrics there. It's really a how-to and very process-oriented framework. And I feel that, like, from my experience, this very much gives safety and clearance, but it's also really hard to actually focus on the value creation, because you're very much focused on process and execution. And I think it takes both. So what would your approach be to give that a more value focused
So
perspective?
I think we need to distinguish two things. I mean, the overall goal is to improve value creation, right? And redirect your focus to not talk about organizations, roles, and whatever, but rather on what needs to be delivered for the customer, right? But on the other hand, process structure and rituals are good, but they need to be understood by everyone why we are doing it. If you're retrospective, and we've been discussing this during the book, not a retrospective does not work for everyone, because usually it's just like, oh, let's cancel it. That's like 15 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late, right? So again, coming to that point, going into the details, why we're doing this and what's the point, I think it's extremely important, right? With everything, every ritual, it doesn't matter in which methodology or whatever you want to do, it is not just to fulfill and tick off a box, but it has a meaning, right? And to take the quality out of it, I think that's extremely important. And you do have a scrum master, just as an example. It doesn't have to be a scrum master. It could be one person that is appointed, right, to look after that. It's important that those meetings provide value. And sometimes it's value about making a process better. Like, for example, hey, yesterday we had, we tried to deploy 5 times and it failed basically 6 times, right? Why was that? And to talk about it. I think everyone will get value out of that. I think the problem is to assume these are alignment meetings, or it's not clear why we are meeting, or people don't get anything out of that. And iterating back on what I said in the very beginning, you need to bring the people together. It's a learning process for everyone, right? And to make this understandable for everyone, I think it's extremely important. And that, for example, you have a process issue you discuss in this one meeting. It has nothing to do, for example, in your daily stand-up or whatnot, right? And I think the problem is to mix this up and to try to pretend that what you have done before, try to somehow fit all of those meetings and topics you had in another structure without really questioning why you're doing that. And that's, if you may call it transformation, I think it's the wrong word. You need to really understand what you're doing there. And to have the passion, and I would say almost sometimes also the audacity to really go into it. I think that's the difficult thing, right? To really rethink the way and how you do things and why you're doing it. And then focus in these ones meetings where we're talking about the customer and where we're talking about which new things we want to develop and how to approach that, like work meetings. The other things is about improving the organization, trying to make things better, sharing how we get better. And I think that's also the power of working in an agile and iterative way. These are all of those elements that are so important and add up to it. And instead of just saying, hey, okay, we do Scrum by the book. Yes, you can do Scrum by the book. You did your user stories. Okay, tick, tick, tick. But why are we doing it, right? And I think that might be the, let's say, this little twist to rethink what you're doing there. And at least based on my experience, a lot of times exactly in this process of moving from this classic project approach to this product approach with agile working, it's usually just mistaken, right? It's just like, okay, this daily stand-up suddenly takes an hour, everyone's bored to death, right? Because the manager wants to download his whatever waterfall to everyone. So rethink, right? And there's time for everything, but the idea is to be as productive and as value focused as possible, and everything creates value, even improving your ways of working, right? But it needs to be then also, it needs to add value from the person who participates.
I think that fits very well into what I've learned in my very first job as a Scrum Master that I had at a big insurance company in Germany, where I was introduced to a team who had to do Scrum. And so I was there as an external Scrum Master. And I thought, okay, so my job is introduce Scrum, like promote it, make them do Scrum. So I was like scheduling the meetings, starting with the daily stand-up. So we did our first daily stand-up and everyone was super demotivated. Everyone was like, yeah, I did this yesterday. I'm still working on it today, and I don't need help. It's good. Right? Everyone. And I was like, how do I do this? How do I do this? Until I found out that like 6 out of 10 people went smoking every morning at 9:30 downstairs. They were talking about their work. They were coordinating themselves. They were helping each other out. Not on their like workstation, but like on that in that pause, right? So my understanding shifted from you have to facilitate the daily scrum to you have to make sure they coordinate themselves, which is a principle on a higher level. And my job went from facilitate a meeting to make sure the non-smoking people also start smoking, or at least like to join the coffee break at some point, right? So they don't miss out on this opportunity and make it accessible for everyone.
But this is exactly the thing. So you're trying to, everyone needs to understand what actually needs to be done, right? And not make it, as Matthias and I, we are not always very dogmatic. It's about the idea behind it, right? And to make the people understand, okay, this is what's happening here and there. But as I said, at least, I mean, I've had the exactly same experience, not with smoking people, but with people who said, okay, now is our daily scrum meeting, so let's just download everything that we always wanted to say. And, everyone was like just fading out, checking the phone. So if this is the case, you guys somehow obviously have a problem, right? Because no one's clear what's actually happening here.
And actually in the book, we are not, I'm not sure if we have used the word Scrum a single time. So we just have a single chapter on teams, and there we write what makes successful teams. And then we say the team should choose whatever methodology, way of working they want to use, because they are self-organized. And we're focusing more on the larger scale of organizations. So what do you do if you have 15, 50, 150,000, 5,000 teams? How you do structure and organization. And there you can't just apply a single methodology, because it's totally different context.
Let like 10 teams, would you still let like 10 teams collaborate on the same product and choosing their own methodology or their own way of working?
Sure, why not?
Individually.
Okay, from a running perspective, and I think that's one thing I've always preached, was just choose the way how you organize yourself, but this and this and this is what I want. I'd like you to exchange. I like you to improve on the ways how you work. I like that you coordinate. I like that you go in iterations. If you do this, I don't know, with Post-its, or if you want to do it in Jira, and yes, of course, everyone wants to have then the KPI in the end. But this is all the masterclass. Let's go step by step. You will get there, right? People will automatically become better and organize themselves and digitize and automate and want to know the numbers. But we're talking about investing too much upfront time into this thing that does not add any value at all.
Yeah.
And we are talking,
so you're basically providing a frame, providing like boundaries or policies, and within that frame, they can choose whatever they want, right?
Yeah, on the team level. But actually, we do not focus on the team level, because it's like, and we're talking about large-scale organization, and the interaction between the teams is much more important than how a single team operates. It's like the discussion about developer experience or development experience. I hate to talk about developer experience, because even in mid-sized organization, the individual productivity of a developer is not so important. It's about the coordination.
Can you give me a brief explanation of what developer experience means? Like, my background is from electrical hardware engineering, so I'm not a software developer by any means. So you need to slow down a little bit on this one.
So there are certain discussions how to make a developer write more source code on a single day. Mm-hmm. Sounds like a reasonable thing to do. But actually, if you look at large software organizations with hundreds of people involved, and we are talking about business value, cycle time, throughput, quality, cost, and motivation. And what does more software code applies? So what is the benefit? maybe it's throughput, but actually if you need several teams, not just several individual contributors, but several teams to deliver a single feature or deliver a microservice. So where do you waste your time? It's usually waiting. It's waiting because everyone is working on different topics at the same time. And if you measure on the cycle time, the individual productivity is not so relevant. And this is why in large organizations, the individual methodology that a team applies is not really relevant. It's how you coordinate and orchestrate and facilitate the communication between the teams. And sometimes you optimize for teams not communicating. And this is why you want to have a loosely coupled organization who is aligned on the certain aspects. And this is why you need to have bounded context, why you have domains, because inside of a domain, you need high collaboration, high communication, but between domains, you want to limit this.
I saw this part of your book where you talked about like platform teams and architecture. Could you explain that a little bit to me? I'm not very familiar with the concepts of DDD and the architecture behind it that you were promoting. So could you give me a brief explanation of it?
So actually, DDD is it was created for coming up with a proper software architecture, but most organizations start with setting up teams. As we just discussed, every team needs to work in the same way. But then what do you do if you have 100 or 500 teams? How to bring order in this chaos? Because everyone is talking about autonomous teams, but actually the teams are not autonomous. They are loosely coupled, but they are still coupled. And so you need to find the right clusters of teams. And you need also to find the right technology stack. So in your e-commerce shop, you might apply different ways of working and a different architecture than in your fulfillment center or in your finance department. So context matters. And with Wardley mapping and with domain-driven design, you can, driven by the value chain and the value stream in your organization, define and identify and visualize, and this is the much more important aspect in discussions inside your leadership team, identify certain areas in your organization where you should have similar ways of working and similar technology stacks and similar architectures. And this is where domain-driven design and Wardley maps can help in driving change in organizations, because you know which parts of organizations are interconnected, need to communicate, and which should not communicate, and which, depending on the communication paths, should have similar ways of working.
I remember going through that section of the book, and there was also something that I found quite interesting that I've never seen before so far, which you called, or I don't know where you picked it up from, but in your book it's called the inverse Conway's maneuver.
So actually, it's a
what is that?
Yeah, it's a maneuver that we didn't invent, but we applied it in at AutoScout, where I used to work. We applied the inverse Conway law maneuver even in 2014. Conway's law says that an organization builds systems that mirror the structure of the organization. So you have a front-end developer team and a back-end developer team and a database development team. You can paint and design the architecture however you want. After a certain period of time, you will have a 3-layered architecture. And this is called the Conway's law. But you can use the Conway law impact on an organization the other way around. You can, probably with domain-driven design, come up with the architecture that you want to have in your organization, and then structure your organization in a way that it mirrors the application that you want to have. And this is the inverse Conway's law maneuver. And this works on smaller scale, and it also works on the large scale. And this is why we say in an organization, if you can design an organizational setup on a greenfield, and this is mostly the case when organization talks about we do a DevOps transformation or agile transformation, and then they're talking about 150 teams or 500 teams, and you need to structure. Then you first come up with what is your value stream, what are my domains, what is the bounded context for those domains. You structure the systems, and then you design the architecture, the organization around this architecture.
It's very interesting that you mentioned it, because we've been discussing this yesterday as well, and we are well aware that not everyone starts with a greenfield, right? I think that's the most important aspect, but it's an important, I'd say, thought exercise that you could do. And this is again now circling back to, we start with introducing safe, and then we do 1 year, we fight about introducing safe and who is doing what, and including organizational structuring, because I have 5 departments and I have 20 teams here, and this is how we're going to do it, right? So it's a thought exercise. It's I'd say an inspiration to rethink things, right? Again, understand, why are we doing this? It's not about just being against things. It's about questioning, previous things. And also, when we talk about domain-driven designs, when we talk about Wardley maps, about being clear what we do and what we don't do. Yeah, and that might mean that from your department that you're currently leading, there might be one part that you don't need anymore, or whatever you want to be in 3 to 5 years, where you say, we're not going to build this by ourselves. This one we're going to move, and we're going to use those people, and they're doing other things. So it's really about being clear what you want to build, where you are applying your people to, if I may say this in a very corporate context, like this is our priorities, and not everything is a priority. And to give the people an idea that what they're doing makes sense, and in this context that they're working, where can I go, and where, do I need to align, where do I need to cooperate, where can I be free? And usually this clarity doesn't exist, right? It's like, it's mixed. It's because you have a legacy. It's because you have a brownfield thing. And it's basically your job as a leadership team to create this clarity and then work step by step towards that, right? It's not the really nice and famous word, it's not a destination, right? It's a journey. And that's more to give you an idea of how to start thinking about these things, because you tend to get into the same traps, right? Say, consulting company comes and say, now we need to do this. Yeah, it's clear, but it's not, right? It's really questioning things and thinking about why are we doing this, and then being clear about what you do and what you don't do.
Yeah. When I worked at a very classic consulting company back then, it always felt like you go through to a client and you do a quote unquote transformation, but it's actually like a theater. So you hire the actors, they gather in, they dress up, mostly in suits, and they would play this theater. And once they're gone, in Germany you would say, haben die Sau durchs Dorf getrieben und die Sau hat das Dorf verlassen. So basically, once they're gone, it's not there anymore. And one of the phrases we used back then, which I'm not using now, but back then we said, well, this will keep going until we leave, right? So das hält bis wir weg sind. So that was very, very typical. I think we mentioned Wardley mapping a couple of times, but I'm well aware that most of the listeners probably have never heard of Wardley mapping. Can any one of you give a brief intro to what it is about?
So Wardley mapping, actually, it's a tool for visualization. It's just another 2x2 or 2-dimensional map, but it provides clarity, and it one of the dimension, the horizontal dimension, clustered the value stream and organization in 4 areas. The first one is Genesis. This is where new innovations emerge. So where organizations try to innovate and find new business models, new features, depending on the scale. The second is custom built solutions. So when you found an innovation, usually you build a custom built solution for it. After a period of time, custom built solutions got products. So other companies are offering those products, and then, those products get utilities. So you have those 4 areas. And if you look at your business process and your value stream, you can see that for some of the steps in your business process, you use utilities like power or cloud technologies. In other, you use products. In other, you use custom built solutions. The second dimension is how close this step in your value chain is to the customer. Steps in your value stream at the top of the map are very close to your customers and very visible. When they are at the bottom, they are not really visible to your customers. And while mapping your business processes together with your application landscape, you can identify in your value stream, in your business processes, are you acting in the right way? So, for example, for e-commerce shop, do you use a custom-built web shop or do you use a product? Both could be okay. It depends on the context of your situation. But you might identify with a Wardley map that you use custom-built solutions too much in areas where a product would be a great fit. Or the other way around, many enterprises, they just buy an e-commerce shop and then they claim we're doing e-commerce because they have installed a shop out of the box, but they're not really optimizing it. And in their context, the right area for an e-commerce shop would be a custom-built solution. And by mapping out those value stream in a Wardley map, you can identify from a strategic perspective and from a value stream perspective, are my applications in the application landscape in the right areas? And usually you see two consequences. One is to push more and more applications or part of applications in the area of utilities, so just use cloud services, while in other areas use more custom-built solutions with your own development teams, or even identify in the area of Genesis new innovations for your customers. So this is where Wardley maps can help to visualize discussions. You can discuss all these aspects without Wardley maps, but Wardley maps as a tool help to facilitate those discussions.
It remembers me very much when we built factories at Schaeffler and in the special machinery department, where once you want to set up such a thing, you think a lot about make or build decisions, right?
Yeah.
And for that, you want to focus on what your unique value is that you want to put out in the world. You want to make that, right? So if it's part of your identity or part of who you are, you want to make sure to make that and not like buy it. But the rest should be utility as much as good as it
what
can,
Matthias
right?
said, and this is also what we've pointed out, the topic of context, right? When you are a producing company, that you are a manufacturing company, the manufacturing process most likely is one of your key differentiators towards your competition, right? If you are building your business model as an online sales channel, you might want to have your hands on the online sales channel and not give it to a third party or have whatever everyone else has, right? So this exercise to sort out what are actually the critical topics that we need to have our hands on, where we need to be experts, right? You need to work on that and you need to build up this domain knowledge. How does actually our manufacturing process work? How does our online sales process work? Where do our customers convert? Where do they don't convert? Where do we have, drops and whatever? If you need to be conscious about the decisions that you take, right? And this exercise, we've also been discussing that, of course, Wardley Maps is a great tool. You can do it, of course, a little bit more on an abstract way or more on a hands-on way, but it's a beautiful tool to have a common discussion because you need to have your people on this as well, right? You cannot just move in and say, hey guys, on a weekend I've ruined my little Wardley map and good news, the result is ABCD, we're not going to do anymore and the other things we'll do. It's a common process, right? And it creates a perfectly nice clarity for a lot of people so they can also conclude on their own. Again, it's about learning together and doing this together and not about, this is how we're going to do it. Good luck. Tomorrow, 80% of the teams are agile. Yeah. It's not what we want to have. It's really about this journey, but creating the right priorities and doing the right things to create as much value as possible in the context of the business you're in.
And 100%. It also seems like it's a very strategic decision on what you want to have on the custom build side, right? So it could be anything, right? Production of t-shirts might be a utility for some companies, but it might be the USP of another, right? So it really depends on how you position yourself, how you think you want or need to position yourself.
Yeah. And the Wardley maps, the 4 areas of the Wardley maps, it also makes it easier for organization to accept that there is not a single way of working. Because in the area of genesis of innovation, you need totally different ways of working, like in the areas of utility. So Every organization has processes like your fulfillment center, where you want to have Six Sigma processes, where you optimize for cost, for efficiency, and agile ways of working would be wrong. But in the area of innovation and custom built software, agile ways of working are appropriate. And this is one of the key drivers for resistance in organization, because someone comes and wants to introduce a new way of working for all areas of the companies. And some areas of the company say, yeah, this is awesome. This is what we waited for years. While others say, this is nice, but not appropriate for us. But the person who is introducing the change says, now we need to work agile because all the other successful digital native companies, startups, they all use it everywhere. And this is just wrong.
Yeah. That was something that I stumbled upon really, really late in my career that I've had so far, that if you look at those companies, may it be Amazon, may it be Tesla or Apple, and you look out for where is the Scrum team, where is the Scrum Master, there are none. Like, you don't find any, but you would still consider them pretty agile.
I mean, Apple, they also have software as a service solutions for things that they're just not relevant, right? For their core business. So that's exactly the point. And we're talking a lot about this, a little bit like IT and tech strategy as a starter. I think it's an important one, because in the past it has been like, okay, we'll decide it like this, or we'll decide it like that. And our point is to not just copy for the sake of copying, and not just introduce something for the sake of introducing it. But if you want to take this seriously, if you really want to build great software on scale, there are a lot of things to consider. Of course, one thing is CI/CD. Of course, one thing is being iterative and going in, I don't want to say sprints, but in a certain interval, right? It's really about understanding the change in it. And I think, and to be quite honest, based on at least my experience, and Matthias, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of companies are missing out on it. They are treating it like a thing, how agile, this is the worst KPI I've ever heard. How agile are we? Well, from 500 teams, 499 are doing every day a Scrum meeting. It's like
the worst indicator from success criteria for agile was the number of tables that are height adjustable. This was the measure of agility. Yeah, how many tables we have in the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people get a lot smarter already. I think I'm being now a little bit sarcastic in that sense. Right? I know, and there are a lot of great people who totally understood those concepts and are working towards that. But as we said in our pre-talk a little bit, like, we are still in the phase of early adopters and innovators when it comes to cloud adoption, and in the same sense when it comes to creating iterative concepts. And you cannot just copy paste an Apple or a Google or whatever, and they have their totally own issues probably that we don't even think about, right? But what they do great is deliver software on scale. This is what they are doing great. And what's their magic sauce, right? What's the magic trick that they are performing to do that? And that's the thing that we need to learn. And it's not about, as I said, dogmatically saying ABC. Yes, this is our important things, structures, and these elements, right? And as I also said, this is our opening statement. Everyone is clear about those elements, but why are we doing it? It's not done by putting there a fruit basket, as I like to say. It's really about understanding this idea that has been created over years, and this optimization. I mean, they are on a lifelong journey of becoming better, right? And that's a little bit the difference.
Yeah. I wonder, because we're running out of time a little bit when I'm looking at the clock, let's say an engineering or a program manager gets your book and he or she goes through it. What do you wish the very first step after reading your book would be on a very practical level?
Let's try it out. So he or she should read through the book, and not everything might resonate, and not everything might be a fit for the current need, but it's 90 chapters. Every chapter is how to, and at least one of the how-tos should resonate, and then the reaction should be, okay, this is interesting. Let's try it.
I mean, you can start, as I said, there's a long range. There's like, we talk about how to become twice as fast, and that's more like from a strategic development angle, let's say. Then we talk about how to ship software continuously and in high quality, which is a lot more on an in-depth level. But we also talk about it in the very beginning. How am I able to explain value to my stakeholders, be it business users, investors, or whatever? And how do I get started? And I mean, one of the really easiest ways, it's so simple, it's almost striking, is just get out of your little office building and ask one of your users, what is actually the problem we're trying to solve here? And don't get me wrong, it's not that I woke up and then I've only done projects like that. I've had to go through very, very bittersweet learnings to understand that usually the problems we're trying to solve in IT are not the problems that actually need to be solved. And the way and how people use software, or the way and how they actually operate and cherish things are totally different about what we assume might be a great idea. This is a very simple thing, and if only one person takes this encouragement, or it's actually only a small subchapter that we have, get out of the building and ask a customer, as simple as it sounds, no one's doing it. No one is doing it. And it's so simple. Everyone is busy. Everyone says, I'm the product manager in headquarters, so I cannot talk to some customer in South Africa because this person is really far away. I get it, right? But if you're not even keen to do like this mini basic change and it gives so much value back, right? Then you should reconsider reading the rest of the book, because it's getting even harder. But we strongly assume we're trying to make this as encouraging as possible. That there are just maybe sometimes just the small things to get started, to get the hook, just to get the hook and to get this first idea for, okay, this is where we're getting it. That's interesting. Okay, let's try to be open to get on that journey. And if Matthias says, let's do it. Yeah, exactly. Just do one thing. Just try it. If you fail, you fail. Yeah, so whatever. Will you therefore produce one less?
Awesome.
Whatever? Probably not. Right? You do have the luxury of this small little thing that might not work, where I can actually promise you it will work. It will give you something back.
Hey, Sophie, Matthias, thank you so much for being here. I feel like we could go on for the next few hours as well. But if people want to learn more about what you're doing, if people want to get their hands on your book, what is the best way to stay in touch with you and get all the information necessary? Where do people find you?
Well, very easy. I think first of all, you can of course subscribe to our newsletter, where we will be sharing anecdotes and hands-on ideas on how to improve your software development in your organization. You can subscribe on it with All Hands on Tech. But you can also, of course, always follow Matthias and myself on LinkedIn. You find us under our clear names. And there we are also sharing a lot of insights, a lot of our stories. And soon our first chapter we want to publish, in a sense that we want to get feedback from the community if we're on the right track, if people understand like the lines of thought that we have. Maybe we have the one or the other thing still in the pipeline, how to promote Matthias and I thoughts.
All right. For everyone listening, I will provide all the links mentioned in the show notes below. So as this is the end of the episode, you can just go into your podcast player and click on the show notes, and you see all the relevant links. Get in touch with Matthias and Sophie, check out their newsletter. I subscribed as well. And if you can get your hands on the book, you will be very, very much pleased with the content. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, both of you. And bye-bye.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Thanks for tuning in into today's episode and bearing with us till the very end. If you liked this episode, I would really appreciate if you help us spread the message. Maybe you know someone who might like today's content as much as you did. For you, it might just be a short DM, a like, or a share, but for me, it would really make my day. If you want to learn more about Stellar Work or our guests Matthias and Sophie, make sure to open up the show notes Check out Sophie and Matthias' book and newsletter. I've already subscribed and they didn't leave me hanging. Give it a shot. That's all for today. Thanks again and talk to you very, very soon. Bye.
Hey Sophie, hey Matt, welcome to the show. It's the Stellar Work podcast, and we want to know about your book. All hands on tech, it's quite the ride. From teams to big organizations, you're our guides. You're our guides. Hey Sophie, hey Matt, welcome to the show. It's the Stellar Work podcast, and we want to know about your book. All hands on tech, it's quite the ride. From teams to big organizations, you're our guides. Cream insight, Sophie brings the flair. Together they're transforming, taking us somewhere. Talking agile, talking code, making changes everywhere. Sharing all the wisdom because they really care. It's the Stellar Work episode with Sophie and Matt. Their book, All Hands on Tech, yeah, it's where it's at. From team building to tech thrills, they're leading the way. Let's innovate and elevate every single day. Started with a plan, now it's 75k strong. Chapters growing longer, they can't go wrong. From team dynamics to software thrills, they've got the roadmap and it's packed with skills. Forget the word transformation, let's just improve. Step by step iteration, finding our groove. Business value, happy teams, it's all about the move. Sophie and Matt in the tech world, they grew. It's the Stellar Work episode with Sophie and Matt. Their book, All Hands on Tech, yeah, it's where it's at. From team building to tech thrills, they're leading the way. Let's innovate and elevate every single day. Picture Karate Kid learning how to wax, building up those muscles, just relax. With CD, Scramble, Kanban in the mix. Sophie and Matt, they've got the tricks. Wanna build your own, make it smooth and fast. All hands on tech, it's gonna last. From genesis to products, utilities in between. They map out the journey, making tech dreams gleam. Don't forget those Wardley maps, visualizing clear. Finding the right strategy, bringing in us near. From value streams to context, they make it crystal bright. Matt and Sophie, they're setting things right. It's the Stellar Work episode with Sophie and Matt. Their book, All Hands on Tech, yeah, it's where it's at. From team building to tech thrills, they're leading the way. Let's innovate and elevate every single day. So tune in, take notes, join the transformation with Sophie and Matt. It's a tech sensation. Stellar Work podcast, we're having fun. With all hands on tech, the journey's just begun. Forget the word transformation, let's just improve. Step by step, and proof, step iteration. Vibing, how to what do, how to work, how up. Don't know the love, those nothing up and the new. Big Sophie, hey Matt, welcome to the show. It's a Stellar Work podcast, and we wanna know about your book, All Hands on Tech, it's quite the ride. From teams to big organizations, you're our guides. You're our guides. Our guides. Hey Sophie, hey Matt, welcome to the show. It's a Stellar Work podcast, and we want to know about your book, All Hands on Tech, it's quite the ride. From teams to big organizations, you're our guide. Don't forget those Wardley maps, visualizing clear. Finding the right strategy, and the right strategy, bringing us near. From value streams to context, the concept and the growth. The Stellar Work episode with Sophie and Matt. Their book, All Hands on Tech, yeah, it's where it's at. From team building to tech thrills, they're leading the way. Let's innovate and elevate every single day. Don't forget those Wardley maps, visualizing clear. Finding the right strategy, bringing in us near. From value streams to context, they make it crystal bright. Matt and Sophie, they're setting things right. Cause the Stellar Work episode with Sophie and Matt. Their book,